There we go. The little red light came on. Okay, we're going to do demos first. We have the order of projects here. Like the project manager for each team would come up and introduce the project, so that she or he can do the demo or have someone else run it. I want to try to keep these to about 3 or 4 minutes at most. Don't let these drag out. Here's the HDMI cable, so if you plug into this, it'll show up on both screens. Any questions? If not, who's first up here? I can't see from here. Chess. Noah? You have the floor.
Ben, Josh. Okay, sweet. So our project was just to make a working chess game in a Java environment, I guess, like with a Java GUI front end and Java logic in the back end. And so we haven't completely finished that yet, but we are going to show you the board and how it suggests the possible moves for the pieces.
Got it there. I may have to reset it up here. Tap on the pen. Maybe not a power save mode around here. Frequency is out of range. Doesn't like your Twitter. Fine.
HDMI.
It's okay. We can all look back. Oh, trust me, I've had these problems before in prior classes.
Okay.
The boxes are actually, they replaced all of them a year or two ago. It was supposed to clear up all the problems, but apparently it doesn't.
Yeah, I guess not. This is.
Okay, well, we'll just watch back
screen
here.
that doesn't. Okay. Anyway.
So currently, if we click on the pawns, it will show us the suggested or possible moves for that piece. I think we have that done for the knights as well.
Well, you can't move any of the other pieces right now.
Right.
So,
True.
I mean, you can click on them, but they won't show you any possible moves.
Well, actually, that would be the correct possible move.
Yes. Pawns all the way there.
So we're just going to continue working on the logic for all of the pieces and allowing them to move and take turns. So those are our next steps, and this is what we've come up with so far.
Okay.
But the GUI is successfully interactive. As you can see.
Yep, yep. Well, you got 3 weeks to your next demo. All right. Okay. Any questions, anyone?
You guys worked on like computer logic at all to like play with AI?
To, like for an AI player?
Yeah.
Not a
But
ton.
it's a lot more complicated than you think it is.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that might be a feature that ends up getting cut. We'll have to see how things go next week.
Okay, next up is General Manager.
All right, so we're the Ultimate Werewolf group. Essentially, for those of you who haven't played Werewolf, it's a game where everybody gets, they get a card, and then you have roles in the game, and then each player, like at night, the werewolves kill somebody, and then like medics can choose to heal people and stuff. Our game is very basic at this point. We do have a front end. We're still working on connecting the front end to the back end, so functionality isn't quite there yet.
Just make sure it's still things are hooked up to the HDMI cable.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, okay, hey, got both of these.
Okay, so this is as fancy as it gets. Basically, you could type in like test, and then you could join game. This is going to walk through, so the host would be waiting. So like if you joined a game, the host would have to start the game. So from here, it takes a second to kind of load in. So then it tells you the rules. And then basically, as a werewolf, you can choose someone to eliminate. So I'll eliminate player 1. It doesn't quite work yet, but then it waits on everybody else to play their roles. And then whenever werewolves have killed everybody or the villagers win, it'll stop the game. Additionally, if you want to host, then you can hit create game. It'll have all the players listed, and then once you're ready, you can hit start game. It'll run through a daytime when everybody's kind of discussing, and then once the host is ready, they flip it to nighttime when all the actions are performed. And then once all the actions are performed and the game rules are met, the game will end. So
What do you plan to have for 3 weeks from now?
hopefully we can all join games and then have the roles. Because we have the back end ready, like I said, we're just trying to work on connecting it all.
Okay, thank you. What's the biggest unexpected problem you ran into on this?
I think it's definitely going to be communication. We've had some miscommunication between the front end and the back end teams, so that kind of falls on me, not communicating enough between them to really understand where everybody's at. So I think the back end is having trouble knowing where the hook-in positions are going to be for the front end, and the front end is kind of in the same boat, not knowing what the back end expects.
Okay, and let me ask the same question for the chess program. What was the single biggest problem you ran into with your chess so far?
I think so far it's been like dividing up the assignments and coordinating everything, kind of similar to what they said. So.
Yeah, okay, next. Okay, now it's meal manager. So
Okay, so while Roy sets it up, basically our goal was to create an app that would help you plan meals for a week. So like instead of having to go scour the internet, you can have a database with a bunch of recipes in it, and then you're like, this week we want these kinds of recipes, and you'd be like, give me these kinds of recipes for this week. And so we have a simple UI that Corey is going to demonstrate that connects to our Kotlin backend and the front ends and React.
Yeah, so it's all working right now. We can add a recipe and generate a menu. Pretty simple. I happen to know that Dr. Webster's favorite meal is dino nuggets. So we can add that in, we can add the ingredients. He likes 1 pound dino nuggets. And then you can add instructions. Cook for 12 minutes in the oven. Preheat to 350. And you can add tags. He likes to eat it for lunch. It's a prep meal. And then you can just submit it, and we'll add it. And then for generating menus, right now we just have, you can choose how many you want of each type of meal. And then there's certain tags. So if we wanted to make sure that all of our meals were ovenless, right, or that they were quick prep, we could select those tags. And when we generate a menu, you can see the different types of meals that will show up. And you can click on one and you can see who created it, when they created it, the certain ingredients and instructions, and all of the tags that go along with that meal. So hopefully we want to be able to add some more functionality to the generate menu, add tags per meal basis, also allow the user to be able to choose like certain ingredients that they have, and then generate a meal plan based off of those ingredients that you have. So,
what was the biggest problem you guys ran into?
well, honestly, Jacob was on our team, and he was our React developer. The other us two on the front end, we didn't have any experience in React, so we had to learn it once that happened. So it was difficult, but we did it. So it works.
Well done. Okay, next up is, I can't read from here. Yard Pal. Oh, this is snow removal? Okay. Our miniature team here.
Yeah.
Yard pile. We decided that was a little narrow-minded, so we decided to expand out to any yard jobs, so lawn mowing, shovels, whatever. Basically, our average is trying to make it easier for members of the community to request jobs to be done, and more people to actually do those jobs without having to go through like any other kind of more complicated system or anything. We just can have it all things easy to use that.
Yep. All right, so we had like our own, we already had a login, we can go here and sign in. But let's say we want to register, so we got like efind1@gmail.com, and then just do password and my password, and then click on login, and then I put in my phone number, but I'm not actually put that in. Not that many people are. All right, so let me go ahead and quick sign up. There we go. now we see this list of jobs that we have. You guys see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And there we go. And like you can scroll down. There's like 20 jobs or so. So I'm looking at it, and you know, I say, oh, I want this lawn care, and so I look, lawn care, $15 an hour. Okay, looks pretty good. You know, address, like I don't know what happened. I think before we had like the city here, but it would show you like, you know, Provo, Utah, so that I know that it's like in the general city. And then you go ahead and you can accept the job there. And then now I can go to my jobs. Well, it should show up here. I don't know why it's not showing up in my jobs.
Because it's a demo.
Here, let me try
Trust me.
signing out, and we'll go into one of them.
Didn't make proper sacrifices before doing the demo.
Oh, the app state. So I just can just sign it to the old one. Okay, yeah, I think what happened was like the state was still the same as one of our other ones. Okay, so this is one of our other accounts that we were using. There you go. All right. So yeah, so here's one of the examples that we were using before. Okay, so here's some jobs he requested. We'll go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and add a job. So add our title, throw our test in here, and then we can choose just the thing. Weed removal, hourly rate, you know, $10 an hour, job description, test description, and then you can select your state. So let's say we're in Arizona. And then our address is 123 AZ Lane. In our city, Mesa. And then we enter our zip code, 78904. And then we can submit that.
Click on it, John.
Click on that.
Submit.
Yeah, sometimes it does that. Alright, and then we go to our job, and yeah, we gotta find it. It's here.
Check on job manager.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah, I don't know why it's not. So maybe we should try. Can we like mess with for a bit and we come back? It was literally working like before.
Oh, that's okay. Basically, this is a little.
Yeah. So I mean, long story short, it adds it to the job, and then you have your my job requests, and then you have your my jobs, which is like the jobs that you've accepted, and then you can go like this, and you can delete the job from your list, which should delete it there, and then it'll also delete it in your job. So yeah, I think the state or something just got messed up, and then you can just like sign out.
What do you plan to have in the next 3 weeks?
So the next 3 weeks, we just want to make sure that like, yeah, first of all, that our account page like has all this stuff on it, and then we also want to have like a search feature that allows you to like filter through a couple things there. So.
And what's the biggest issue or problem or whatever that you ran into in the process?
I don't know. I think probably just the same thing where we're just learning a new software. Like since we're a small team, communication was like pretty easy, but as far as like learning React for most of us, because Tyler knew React, but the rest of us didn't. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, great. Okay, Game Boy emulator.
Yeah, so ours was the Game Boy emulator, so we wanted to emulate a Game Boy, the original, not the color, not the advance, just the Game Boy, which we were able to do fairly well. Our goal today was just to get it to boot up to have the Game Boy logo, but we got past that, which is great. Yeah. Which is, you know, we got our CPU going, we got our display going. I think that's about it.
Oh, look at that.
It's in green because we wanted to have like kind of a green background. You want to talk about it? No. I'm just gonna play.
There you go. Yeah, talk about classics.
We're really fortunate that the games were already coded for us.
We just don't
So yeah, since since all the games are kind of coded, we just like plugged it in, so it's like plug and play like it usually is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Want to see another game? We're quite bad at Dr. Mario.
You guys have a sound?
Sounds hard. But that said, we have completed everything that we originally set out to do.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
I mean, originally, so now it's all gravy between for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Yeah, so we were thinking about doing audio, which could be one, and then there's also like cartridge banking. Some cartridges have like storage on themselves, like Pokemon, for example. So you can't play Pokemon right now, but once cartridge banking and stuff is implemented, you can.
So what was the biggest problem or issue you ran into in this?
I think what I would say would probably just be like knowledge gets really like focused on a single person because it's really difficult for one person to understand how everything's working. And so it's kind of hard to parallelize if things are just stuck, like that knowledge is stuck with one person.
Yep.
we had chopped up into different groups, like once for CPU had 2 people in, and there's a memory person, there was a start and display person. So if they needed help, it's a bit hard to help them. So yeah, but everything was pretty gravy. So
Sounds great. Well done. And last, but hopefully not least, Valeria.
Sweet. So we built Valeria, which is a board game. Has anybody played it? That's okay, neither have we. First group day, we just played the game. It was awesome. Have anybody played Matcha Overview? It's a game similar. Oh, a couple. Sweet. Basically, it's a game. You're trying to get the most points. You have a kingdom. You've got citizens and monsters and domains. It's a turn-based game, so maybe I'll just explain a tiny bit of rules so you understand what's even going on. You start your turn by rolling dice, and you get income based on the numbers you roll. And then you can either recruit a citizen, slay a monster, or get a domain. And that goes until stacks are gone, kind of like domain. So, turn begins to.
Okay. Okay, Silas kind of clicking through. So she just went through the roll phase. There's a little roll dice, gives you your results. And then here you have your screen that shows all the cards that you can purchase. So they're kind of small, so we made it so you can click on them and see a close-up on there. And you have the option to either purchase it or go back. When you purchase it, it'll let you allocate how many golds and then how many blues you want to use, because the blues are wild in the game. So when you get done, then that will be added to your cards. So click see my cards, you'll see that now you have a merchant in addition to your starting peasant and knight there. And then everyone's given a duke at the beginning too, so you just make that so you can look at what you got there. The image is a little low quality because we just took pictures of them.
We're like ignoring the IP issues.
But yeah, all the features of the game work as they should, except for the domains, which have very complex rules. So that's kind of the next step there.
And that's pretty much what you're hoping to get in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
What was the hardest problem you ran into besides the domain complex rules?
Just dividing up responsibilities is kind of the hardest thing, because some things end up taking a lot longer than expected, and then some others were like, oh, this is like a 15-minute problem instead of a few hours.
And think about it. The number of you have mentioned that. Think about that, because that is one of the key issues in team development, is how do you keep everyone busy and productive, and how do you share information? And it's why software gets complex once you get beyond one program. Now, if it's one person, it's one of you coding your own thing, you hold everything in your head, but it takes forever because you have to do everything. And as you start adding people, you have people to do work, but now you can actually see workflow in action. You know, you have a number of people, but it's like, how do I actually make this person productive? If I get another person, how does that really help me? You know, how do I somehow partition off part of the task, bring this person up to speed? You know, the whole React issue shows that. You know, how do we bring this person up to speed and make sure they know how to do this and give them stuff and have them talk to each other. So you've all pretty much demonstrated the challenges we were talking about. Great. Well done. Okay. Values are actually there. Let's see. Let's do the facts and fallacies first, because actually this is pretty short, as you probably noticed in the meeting. After these 3 very long chapters, you have these other chapters that are very short. Okay. Research. This is something that I've already mentioned in class. A lot of recommendations for practices in software engineering are based on, gee, that seems like a good idea, that should help, or someone did this and it helped. And Glass's complaint is in many cases no one's done any actual research to see if it generally helps, or if that one instance, that one anecdote was a special case. And there's a lot of, this goes, as he says, to a lot of the hype behind various tools, technologies, and so on. Oh yeah, you know, we adopted this language and everything was just wonderful and it all magically worked, and you know, just happened to have the right developer or something. So the point is, unless they can point to actual research, tend to be skeptical about any claims as to what does or does not work. This is one of the advantages I've recommended, and will continue to recommend the book Accelerate by Forsgren et al. Because their stuff is all based on actual research and compiling statistics and finding out, you know, identifying productivity in various organizations and seeing what practices they implement. Any questions? You can't manage what you can't measure. Yes, we manage things we can't measure all the time. This is something I said, you know, everything has to be numbers based. You have to manage the metrics, and we've already talked about how misleading metrics can be and how distorting it can be to actually manage the metrics, because you tend to, as Jerry Weinberg says, that which gets measured gets fudged. Oh, man, there it is right at the end there. And I do continue to recommend, if you find yourself in that situation, get a hold of Robert Austin's book, which is an outstanding work on just how distorting management by metrics can be, and what you have to do to have any hope of it actually being useful and meaningful. Any questions? Next fallacy, you can manage quality into a software product. And by this is, it's sort of like, you know, if everyone has great intent and we're all unified team, it's going to be high quality. Now, quality comes from actual attention to detail and extensive quality activities. Remember again the inside-out diagram and all the different aspects that go into producing quality in your deliverables. That's what matters. It isn't about management. It isn't about cracking whips or threatening people or rewarding people. It is about actually doing the skull sweat and spending the time and effort to ensure that in every aspect that you can address, there is quality there. Anyone? Yeah, Jerry Weinberg was one who, and we already mentioned this, that programming should be egoless. You know, you should be able to, and his idea was that you shouldn't be so invested in your own code that you can't listen to a good design review, or you know, you can allow other people to rip it apart and so on. Actually, ego is what keeps us going. What you have to do is you have to develop your skills and expertise to the point that you have a reason to have pride in your code. because there's some really, really bad code out there. Questions? Tools and techniques, one size fits all. No, they don't. And I'll repeat what I've said before in here. Give me a bright, talented group of developers, and I can get them to write excellent code regardless of the language, the operating system, the development tools, the methodology. They will adapt, they will do whatever it takes to get it done. Likewise, methodologies are not silver bullets, and that's number 5. Boy, there was a time, like I said, in the 80s and 90s, there was like a new software development methodology every month that would come out. I have so many books that cover different methodologies, and the truth is it really in the end sort of boiled down to agile and waterfall. And frankly, most people use something halfway between the two. Fallacy, estimate lines of code. No, that doesn't work. It didn't work when you're doing strict procedural programming, or it works even less if you're doing object-oriented or functional programming. But there, you don't see this as much as you used to, but frankly, if you go back again to the 90s and early 2000s, a lot of the software estimation methodologies were trying to estimate, we think this is going to be about 10,000 lines of code, therefore this is how long it's going to take to write it. And it doesn't work at all. And you just go back to Armor. You have your levels of ignorance there and things you're going to run into that are completely irrelevant or independent of the number of lines of code that the product ends up being. Any comments or questions here? Random test input is a good way to optimize testing. Now, what you need to do is you need to be very intelligent about the boundaries of what you're dealing with and figure out what the edge cases are and where it could trigger. I don't know how many of you saw the little chart I put up on Slack in random a day or two ago. Hang on a second, let me pop out of here and see if I can bring that up very quickly here. Oh my gosh, I don't have Slack installed. Oh yes I do. I was really worried I didn't have Slack installed right here. Okay. Here it is. Let's see if I can get this big enough to actually read. Software tester walks into the bar, runs into the bar, crawls into the dances, flies, jumps, orders a beer, 2 beers, 0 beers, 99 million beers, blizzard, -1 beer, quantity of beers, testing complete. A real customer walks into the bar and asks where the bathroom is. The bar goes up in flames. This is the problem with testing, and it's the problem with simply thinking that you actually have considered all of the edge cases. Because trust me, customers will do things to your software that you never envisioned in your worst nightmares that they would do to your software. Okay, here. Back to screen. Given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. This was a mantra of open source code. It turned out not to be true. There are a lot of very persistent bugs in open source, various open source code bases that everyone overlooks. Because, and this is one of the key points here, most people want to add new features and track down and fix obscure bugs. You know, it's much sexier to say, oh yeah, I added these 3 features to this particular open source project, and say, oh yes, there was a strange bug that only happened if you did these 3 things, and it was full known. You know, and I spent 2 months trying to reproduce it, and finally tracked it down and fixed it, and no one applauds, except for the few people who were affected by it. Fallacy 9, the way to predict future maintenance costs is to look at past costs, and cost changes constantly in both directions. To say, you know, we're putting this into production and it cost us this much to get it into production, therefore this is what it's going to cost going forward. There are a number of problems with that. First, you've got, remember, with production or with maintenance, you've got adding new features, fixing existing features, fixing defects, making changes to maintain compatibility with changing environmental issues. All of these can end up being more of a time sink than you think they're going to be. And this is one that I really like. He says that, you know, our approach to teaching programming is, well, you know, here's your assignment, write programs to do this. And he says, you know, when you teach writing, you give people really good writing to study. Now back, you know, in the dark ages, 40, almost 50 years ago when I was starting out, a lot of the literature had actual code samples from running systems. In part because this was the hard copy equivalent of, you know, Stack Overflow. It's like, here's the code that you need to make this work under this operating system using Fortran on a CDC Cyber 173, something like that. And a lot of the earliest programming texts, such as The Art of Programming, used examples. It's like, here's a sample code, let's talk about this, let's analyze it, let's do it. I personally think programming should be taught that way. You should have lots of code samples, good code samples to look at. You don't need bad code samples because you learn the wrong thing. Give the students good code samples and then, okay, take this and now change it to make it do this. Now change it to make it do this. Which is sort of like, I mean, I can remember in Honors English, my senior year of high school, Ms. Spark, my teacher, had us take excerpts from poems or prose, and then we had to write our own version of it on a different topic, but emulating the language, the flow, the cadence, and so on. And there's a lot to be said about that approach to programming. As far as I can tell, no one does it. And I think, you know, if someone gave me a very large fellowship or grant or whatever, I'd be really tempted to try and do, what's 142? Is that the introductory lesson? Do a version of 142 that focused heavily on reading existing code and then making minor changes and seeing what happens when you make minor changes. Any thoughts or comments on this? Yeah?
I think they're moving towards that in the CS program because I've been hearing from people younger and major than me that they keep giving starter code for projects now and then you have to like modify it instead of just coding everything from scratch.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, and that's the end of facts and fallacies. Now we've got the rest of Webster 6. So let me put my glasses on so I can see my tiny screen here. Okay, Webster 6 is back here. No. Where's Webster 6? There's Webster 6. And I don't want to do this. Okay. Political pitfalls. And this, again, has to do with adopting new technology or methodology, not educating and listing management before the fact. In other words, if you're going to suddenly say, yeah, let's switch to this programming language or let's switch to this set of tools, hopefully management has given you the freedom to pick what is best. But if you're going to do that, you want to let management know. And say, yeah, we've decided to switch over to functional programming. And this is why. These are the benefits. As opposed to just saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and then you run into some of the problems that you run into in adopting a new technology or methodology. Management comes back and says, what happened? What were you doing? that's a that's an argument, or that's a discussion you don't want to have. The flip side is underestimating resistance. This is where management, or the CTO, or even the project lead says, yes, we're going to do things this way, and the developers are basically saying, what? I don't like that language, or I don't like this approach. If you have the CTO who says, yeah, we're going to do everything with functional programming, and the developers are like, we have an existing code base that works fine. Why are we switching over to functional programming? And why are we doing it on mission critical products? So you don't want to underestimate the resistance you will get from developers. People hate change, and that includes us as developers. Now, the counter to that is, as developers, we often like new and shiny toys. And it looks good on a resume. You like to be able to say, yes, I've done functional programming, or, yes, I've coded in Swift, Go, Haskell, Rust, so on and so forth. It looks great when you're applying for your next job. So often we are fine with that, but on an organizational basis, you don't want to underestimate the developers who may not want to play with the new and shiny toys. You just simply may want to deliver the next version, the next set of features, the next set of bug features that they have to do, bug fixes that they have to do. Overselling the technology or methodology. This is it's going to cure everything. This is the pattern which I've told you time and again. I've seen on late projects where after the second slip they suddenly adopt Agile, even though no one on the development side has ever actually delivered a product using Agile. But they think this is going to magically fix the problems of the late project. Let's just do this and this will solve all our problems, and it doesn't solve all the problems. Same thing if you're hyping any kind of silver bullet solution to management. As an engineer, you want to underpromise and overdeliver. And it can be a real temptation to say, yes, we just need to do X. We just need to adopt this language. We just need to adopt this methodology. We just need to get these tools and all our problems to be solved. And if they're not, you're in big trouble. Not recognizing the politics of architecture. I've already talked about this. Chief architect is a political role, and I mean political in the purest sense. You have to work with everyone and get them on the same page, which means you have to listen to them. You may have to compromise to get everyone to go along. But you've got to get everyone enrolled so that you have that conceptual unity. Getting religious about the technology or methodology, that's sort of the next step beyond overselling it. It is the one true methodology, it is the one true language, it is the one true operating system. I've used so many languages, operating systems, methodologies, approaches to programming. Worked from embedded systems with 256 bytes of RAM to coding with gigabytes of RAM on my personal computer. Don't get religious about stuff. They're all tools. And some of them are pretty wonderful. You're living in sort of the golden age of software engineering as far as the tools go. You're not punching cards, submitting text. Analyzing the complete 64K memory map of your entire computer. But you also have given up some control for that, because you're dependent upon the quality of all those various third-party services, products, operating systems, languages, and so on. Getting on the feature release treadmill, we've already talked about this. This is failing to retire technical debt. And you get a release out there, and management says, that's great, here's the next 40 features we want you to add. It's like, we just barely got this out the door, we've got bug fixes, we've got technical debt to retire, and you have to learn how to push back. Betting the company on a given technology or methodology is basically what we did with Pages. when we decided we're trying to figure out what our target was going to be, this is in 1990, our three choices were basically Macintosh, as Macintosh existed in 1990, which was like System 6, maybe System 7. Windows, I think in 1990 it was probably Windows 2. I'm not even sure Windows 3 was out yet. And Windows 3.1 was the first really useful Windows. MS-DOS, or NextStep. And NextStep was literally light years ahead of anything else. And it looked like this could be a real success. Well, guess what happened? NextStep did not did not ever establish any market. We finally reached a point where we were trying to raise funds to port over to Windows, which by now is at Windows 95, broadly accepted. You know, big change in 5 years. And no one wanted to give us money, and we closed up shop. And we had, as of the spring of 1995, we had a WYSIWYG drag and drop web page editor where you could create web pages without ever touching HTML, and it would just spit out the HTML there. And we went to the venture capitalists, and they said, "What's this web stuff? Isn't Microsoft just going to own all this?" And like I said, we closed our doors. 4 of the Pages engineers formed a new company and did a very limited, and I mean maybe 20% functionality of what we had in our web pages product. Very limited version, and sold themselves to Netscape for $24 million. So, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of time and luck. And that's picking the wrong horse too. It's kind of like, yeah, we're going to go next step. Next step's going to be big. No, next step wasn't big. Until, of course, Apple bought it for $400 million. Steve Jobs came in as CEO and it became Mac OS X. But that was far beyond our date. So, any questions on any of these? Yes?
Is there anything you can do about those last two, like picking the wrong horse? Sometimes it's just
Sometimes it's just luck. I mean, you know, it's sometimes you pick the right horse. Sometimes you get out in the right time. I mean, there were a lot of people who became very rich because of the dot-com boom, because they got someone else to buy up their company before everything collapsed. And there were a lot of people who didn't and lost everything. You know, it's luck of the draw, and you still see that. You know, we're in a bit of a tech bubble right now. Actually, I think it's more than a bit of a tech bubble. I think it's a pretty big one. I don't think it's going to collapse quite as badly as the dot-com collapse happened in March of 2000. But I do think there are a lot of horribly overvalued tech companies right now with no real justification for their valuation. So we'll see what happens. Okay. And then, mouse. Conceptual pitfalls. And again, I assume that you have read all these. The idea here is think as to why you're adopting this new technology or methodology and what it's going to take to actually become proficient at it. Remember, I wrote this in 1995 in a book that was originally called Pitfalls of Object-Oriented Development. And I had seen all of this with OOD in the mid-90s. People thought it was a magic bullet. They thought, you know, oh yeah, we just do objects and everything will work fine. And, you know, objects, we don't have to do quality assurance. And, you know, if I use a particular language, then I already know how to use object technology. It takes time and effort. I mean, the team that had to learn React. It takes time to come up to speed on a new technology and get really good at it. It takes time to really appreciate both the strengths and weaknesses of a given operating system, of a given language, of a given IDE, of a given methodology. And the last one, the asking the wrong questions, I will click through on. These are the two big questions. The whiskey question, why isn't somebody coding yet? Now, of course, you were all in a very accelerated process, so you probably had to start coding pretty quickly. But I just literally, at dinner last night with my daughter and son-in-law, he works for a health tech company here in town, and he talked about a new project that a small group of developers had spun up and had already started implementing without actually talking to the rest of the company about access to data tables and, you know, what would work and what fit. And in essence, they got to a certain point and they had to unwind everything they did because they didn't bother to ask the rest of the company how this fit in with the existing tech base of operations with the company and with existing products as well. The other question is, when will it be done? And the real approach, and you guys are doing this, is like, okay, go for an MVP, get something that's running, and then just keep your code running all the time. Then you're moving into DevOps, where what you want is continuous integration, continuous development, integrated testing, as opposed to, you know, here are the features we must have by third quarter, whether or not they're actually achievable. Any questions on any of this? Boy, we're ripping through this stuff a lot faster than I thought. Let's go over the midterm. Review one more time. There we go. Wrong one. Okay, what's more with feeling? Midterm, next Monday. Online, via Learning Suite. 3-hour time limit once you start, and no, I don't know what happens if you start after 9 o'clock. It shuts you down at midnight, or if you can still do the full 3 hours. So I would advise starting it before 9 o'clock. It'll open at 5 after midnight on Monday. It will close at 11:59 the same day. Open book, open note, open devices, your own work. You can go to the slides, you can go to the lectures. The questions, it says will typically, all the questions will call for citations from the readings and lectures. I actually dropped the questions about lifecycle deliverables, so you don't have to worry about that. Talking about your deliverables in this class. 5 questions, each with 125, each worth 25 points. Total test will be 125, and that's going to be a fourth of your entire class grade. Yes?
So just to clarify, when we're citing, we just need to put the author and then like the
author, book, chapter, and since I know, I mean, how many of you are using electronic copies of books? See, page sites really don't work well. So I'm content if you have author and chapter. That's sort of good enough for me. Tells me you know who said it and where it's at in the book. And we'll talk about how you get a better grade from that point. That'll pretty much, if you say it's this, in other words, you have the actual concept and the author and the book and the chapter, that's a B. If you want an A, you have to be a little more verbose. Class sources, your books. Armor, Meyer and Recton. All the readings and lectures and slides, but you can't cite to my slides if you're citing my slides to cite to Brooks or something. You have to actually go back to the book. Because these are books which, if you're smart, you will hold on to electronically or otherwise. Any questions here? And podcasts, yes?
I'm sure it is, but these slides are online to look at?
Well, they're all, yes, they're all on the class website.
Okay.
There's a tab that's class lectures, and it's got links to PDFs of all the slides, and it's got links to YouTube videos of all the class lectures. So those are all online. This, and by the way, this is online under the, it's from a couple weeks ago, so you'll have to dig through, but it'll actually just say midterm review. This is your ultimate, this is your cheat sheet of cheat sheets. Chapter 18 of Mythical Man Month, Brooks basically outlines all the concepts in his first 17 chapters, okay? So that's a great thing. For peopleware and facts and fallacies, just use the table of contents, especially with facts and fallacies. You can just look down there and there's the 55, facts and 10 fallacies and so on. Go to the Pitfalls webpage and it lists all of the pitfalls there, just as we saw them on the 3 slides I had. The online readings list is on the class website. The lecture slides are on the class website. So it's all there for you to look up. So this is actually a very useful slide to have handy. Now, once again, write your answers in a local editor. Save them locally, and then copy and paste the learning suite. As I said, I've had students every semester who get halfway through the test and then learning suite goes belly up and they go back in and all their answers are gone. You don't want to be in that position. Cite from at least one of the sources where citation is free. Cite from lectures, I've said that. You can cite to omitted chapters. I often have students who cite to the chapters that weren't assigned in Mythical Man Month. Should be sufficient to identify what you're relying on. And again, basic score for a brief, correct answer and appropriate citation is 80%. If you want an A, you need to show me that you really understand the issue here and why this is relevant. Here are examples. This A answer here is a bit long, frankly, in my opinion. Though I'd be impressed. In fact, if you gave me an answer like this, you'd probably get like +1 extra credit. But you can see, what you don't want to do is you never want to leave anything missing. If you say, I don't know, you get 1 point, okay? So don't leave a blank. And, I say this every semester, and I get students who will leave, half a dozen answers blank. It's like, you left stuff on the table. All you had to say was, I don't know. If it's a completely wrong answer or citation, you still get 1 point. Occasionally, you get 2 points. It's like, oh, I can see why they thought that way. It's completely wrong, but yeah. If you have either an unspecific citation, if you simply say Brooks chapter 2, it's like, okay, that's going to be, I know what you're pointing at. You're pointing at Brooks Law, but you didn't get there. Or if you say Brooks Law, but you don't say Brooks chapter 2, you can get up with 3 points there. That's a C. 4 points, adding people to a late project makes it later. Brooks Law, Mythical Man Month, chapter 2. That's your B-level answer. And then your A-level answer is actually show that you understand this, but you don't have to show maybe 3 sentences. And I'll be quite frank. The difference between the B and the A is going to be very arbitrary on my point. Sometimes yeah, okay, I'll give you an A. And sometimes no, nice try, but you were just padding this. And I've been teaching this for 5 years, and as I've said, I can tell pretty much by reading your answer how well you know the material and understand the issue. And even if you're just sort of trying to shine me on, you can get at least 3 points. Sometimes up to 4 if you happen upon the right citation. And I occasionally give extra credit points because sometimes I see answers. It's like, yes, I'm very proud of you. And so, and it's usually not enough to actually make a big difference because almost always people who get extra credit, either it makes up for a point they lost somewhere else, or they end up with like a 100.2%. So, but it makes you feel good. It's like you see that little 6 there. It's like, oh, look at that. And I try to leave a comment on every answer. if you see a lot of good answer comments, that is like good answer. That's sort of my go-to. If I say great answer, it's like, oh, well, I kind of like that one. But don't read too much into that, because sometimes I vary it up just because it gets tiring writing good answer, good answer, good answer. Yes?
How long do you think it'll take you to grade them and get our scores back?
That's entirely up to when I get off my butt and do it. And it's strange because I always have this resistance to getting started, but that's because I naturally procrastinate. Once I get into it, I get this deep feeling of satisfaction because I know I'm sending you out to the world prepared. And you're frankly, at this point, you understand things. I mean, I'm really serious, guys. You will walk out of this class understanding these issues in software development better than at least 90% of the people out there in industry. You really will. And that's a tragic commentary on the industry. And if you get into a good group, everyone else will say, yeah, we know that, and so on. And then you'll get into some jobs, and you're going to be looking around saying, what the hell is wrong with these people? Don't they see where we're headed? And in many cases, they won't. Anyway, so I will try to get them graded. You know, you have this just before Thanksgiving. I'll try to get them graded by the following class period. No promises. It's Thanksgiving weekend. BYU is playing USC, but anyway, we'll see. Okay. And you've already seen the sample questions because they were associated with the reading. So you guys are actually better prepared because this is the first semester I've done that and stuck these in here. So these are the types of questions you will have, except instead of asking for a citation from a specific book, you can use anything for your citations purposes. Any questions? Yes?
How many questions did you say there are?
5. 5 questions, just pretty much like this. And each question has 5 parts, and each part is worth 5 points. How many were going to St. Ives? So which, and this is for 1 point each. That was, no, it's 5 points each. So a given question would be worth 25 points. The whole test will be 125 points. Standard test-taking techniques. Go through, read all the questions, answer the ones that you can do right off the top of your head. And you may even simply come up with 2 or 3 answers. It's kind of like, oh yeah, it's going to be this, this, and I'll have to go look a few more that apply to this. Don't get stuck on stuff. Again, every semester I see 1 or 2 tests where students actually were answering stuff well, and it appears they got stuck somewhere, and they, instead of moving on and answering, filling out, I mean, seriously, you could start by saying, I don't know 5 times in every single question, and then going back. At that point, you're guaranteed, 25 points right off the bat, and then you just start filling in stuff and going elsewhere. There's other questions here. Yes?
Oh, I was just clarifying, but I think you answered it. We need to, for each question, give 5.
Yeah, each question will ask for 5. Will ask for 5 citations. Typically, it's something like 5 risks or 3 risks and 2 mitigations, or 5 things that you would do to avoid problems. And I'll be around on Slack, so you can DM me, and if you're really desperate, my phone number is on the website. You can text me. You can call me too, but if I don't recognize your number, I won't pick up. We all know how that works. And man, spam calls have gotten bad lately. It's like 90% of my calls are, detected spam from Apple. So, any other questions? So we'll do this in 2 weeks. Just a second. Yes.
Just like if we're on different questions and it's like listing risks, if the first thing that pops to our mind for that question is something we've addressed in a different situation.
If it's the same risk, you can reuse it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had a few tests where almost every single risk mentioned came out of the pitfalls And often it was sort of like the same set of about 8 or 9 risks. And someone said, oh yeah, this applies, this applies. It's like, well, you know, it's fair. And if it doesn't, it's like, yeah, I'll mark it down a little, but you know, we tried. So no, if you don't have to use a risk just once. And that's part of what you will discover in real life, is that it's the same set of risks over and over again, quite frankly. Anyway, in 2 weeks, we'll do the legal issues lecture. And then in 3 weeks, we will do the final demos, which will pretty much follow the same format here, except you don't have to explain it. You just come up and show what you accomplished in 3 weeks. And I have a last lecture that I'll do, and then you will have an assignment. It's deliverable number 10, which will be due Wednesday, the last day of classes, on Learning Suite, and it's worth like 1 point, I think. I can't remember how much it's worth. And it's basically, what did you learn? What did you like about the class? What didn't you like about the class? I read all of these. Particularly the things where you have recommendations as far as, you know, improvements to make to the class. And that's probably all I've got. Any other last questions? If not, good luck on the midterm, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks.